into number 10, we have the man with the melted face. Huang Changkai has been described in global media as the man with the melted face because he suffers from a tumour known as neofibromatosis. Sadly for the Chinese national, his tumours were left untreated for 30 years, which meant that his deformity spiralled out of control. Luckily, the Chinese government stepped in and offered him surgical reductions. He has now had 5, which has reduced his 15-kilogram tumour. Although sadly, it will always continue to grow back, so he's always going to need surgeries. Tumours of course stem from cell mutations.
Coming in at number 9, we have the planet of the kind apes. Yeah, so maybe that last theory about our ancient ape friends isn't as true as we thought it might be, at least maybe. In the 1960s, the killer ape theory gave way to the hippie ape theory, which it was the 60s, so of course it did, dude. I mean, peace and love, bro, huh? But hey, I don't mind it. Anthropologist Glyn Isaac dug up evidence of animal carcasses that she believed was proof of these foods being relocated to areas where they could be shared with the rest of the commune. As Isaac saw it as well, the sharing of food led to the sharing of information of where other food could be found and skills as well, which then led us to evolve to the extremely kind human beings we are today. Remember that old saying that sharing is caring? Well, it looks like in this theory it holds lots of merit, and maybe we should remind ourselves about this every now and then. Coming in at our number 8 spot, we have Planet of the Swimming Apes. That's right, not just any kind of swimming apes, but also skinny dipping swimming apes. Near the end of the 60s, we donned the age of Aquarius, well, at least in music. But after the other ape theories, Elaine Morgan, who is a TV documentary writer, made the claim that humans are way different than other primates because our actual ancestors evolved in different environments, such as water. For the apes that could swim, in order to properly navigate the waters a bit faster with more ease, they eventually lost their hair, and standing upright gave them the ability to wade in water as well. Now, let me just say that this theory is widely dismissed in the scientific community, but just back in 2013, world famous David Attenborough actually endorsed it. And he is a pretty intelligent guy, if I do say so myself, so I think after this video we all need to do a little bit more research on that one, because if he says it, man, I almost have to believe him. Coming in at our number 7 spot, we have molecules meeting on clay. According to organic chemist Alexander Graham Cairn Smith, the early forms of the first life on Earth could have arisen out of molecules that met each other on and inside of clay. These surfaces may not have only concentrated these compounds together, but they may have also helped organize them into patterns that are much like our genes that are formed now. The main function of DNA is to hold information on how molecules should be arranged. Now, Cairn Smith believes that the mineral crystals in clay could have arranged organic molecules into these organized patterns, and after a while the organic molecules took over the job and organized themselves. Pretty cool, huh? Well, not as cool as killing or hippie apes, but I'll take it, I guess. Coming in at our number 6 spot, we have deep sea vents. This theory involves all of us humans a long time ago just starting to pop out of these deep sea vents and floating up to the surface. From there, we met our underwater brethren and began to take over the world. Once again, guys, you all know me, so I am just kidding. This deep sea vent theory actually suggests that the first signs of life may have erupted out of these submarine hydrothermal vents that spewed key rich hydrogen molecules. The rocky nooks could have concentrated the molecules together and provided mineral catalysts for some critical reactions. Even now, these vents help support some pretty vibrant ecosystems, so who's to say that all life hasn't originated from there as well? Now, I remember when I was young and I was always feeling at home in the water, and I was thinking like I'd pretend to smash the wave, or like the wave was part of my arm and I would be like Aquaman or even a merman. So this theory I'm kind of into. I mean, it makes sense for me. I mean, did I mention I also talk to fish? No? Okay, sorry, then I'm just bragging then.
Like fish odor syndrome at number 5, generate unusual smells. Fish odor syndrome is officially known as trimethylaminuria. This is a genetic disorder where the body cannot break down trimethylamine and comes from a mutated FMO3 gene. Unfortunately, this means that the sufferer smells. One sufferer, 36-year-old Kelly Fadoe White from the UK, talked to the Daily Mail about her struggle, saying that her scent is fishy and oniony. She said that she has to work nights because her work colleagues complain of her smell.
Coming in at our number 4 spot, we have the great throwing arms. Archaeologists believe that all of us humans and apes began to evolve once we figured out how to throw a baseball. Just kidding. Again, not a baseball, but when we developed the ability to hurl stones at high velocities. Probably, for mostly activities like hunting to eat. Fehring found some evidence at Dmanisi in a 1.8 million year old hominin site that Homo erectus came up with the incredible idea for public stonings to fend off predators and scare them away from their own kills. Now these people were small, says Fehring. This place was filled with big cats, so how did hominins survive? How did they make it all the way from Africa? Well, rock throwing could be partially the answer. He also argues that stoning other predators or animals was a social event that helped socialize them, because it took many individuals to effectively fend off these cats, and they also became more intelligent the more they put their minds together. So there you go, teamwork and sharing are our big takeaways from today's list. Starting us off in our top 3, at number 3 we have lightning strikes. Man, imagine how cool it would be if a bolt of lightning just struck the ground and BAM! There was a human being. Kinda like Thor. Yeah, that would be pretty sick, but obviously it's not the case for us, not really. Electric sparks can generate amino acids and sugars from an atmosphere loaded with water, methane, ammonia, and hydrogen. At least that's what was shown in the Miller-Urey experiment that was reported back in 1953. It suggested that lightning may have helped in creating the building blocks of life here on Earth. Although since the 50s, research has shown that the early atmosphere on Earth was actually low in hydrogen. So while this one doesn't hold much more than that, it sounds wicked cool still. Coming in at our number 2 spot, we have the environmental battle of the fittest. Richard Potts, director of the Smithsonian's Humans Origins program, believes that humans evolved from our ape-like ancestors because of the change in our environments. Every time there was a change, we would then adapt to it and then continue on the path of evolution. Through the savanna hypothesis, many believe that our ancestors were then made to navigate the harsh and scary terrain by walking and moving themselves to new areas, especially because in most areas, food and water could be few and far between. So we adapted to our environment just as well as any other animal out there, but I got one major beef with this theory. Why the hell did we never learn how to camouflage? Is that too much to ask? And finally, coming in at number 1, we have from space. Now, did you think we were actually going to get through one video without one alien reference? No, good, because you would have been sorely mistaken. Many people believe we are just one chemical reaction after the other ever since the Big Bang, and we are all just stardust, which is actually kind of true and also probably a safe bet. But some people out there on the topic of who and where did we come from believe that we are actually aliens already. Maybe we were created in a whole nother galaxy or star system far, far away, and our mothership just dropped us off here millions of years ago. Then we evolved into the humans of today, and now the aliens are dropping in to see how their little science experiment is doing. Ever think of that? That would be pretty trippy, but hey, there is no real evidence on this one here, folks. But it is a really fun theory, and anything to do with aliens, as I'm sure you all know by now, will always grab my attention. But hey, in between this one and the lightning one, I don't know which one I prefer more. Lightning is still pretty cool.
And at number 10, Homo sapiens are still evolving rapidly. Homo sapiens are us humans. Many of these evolutionary developments are attributed to brain size development and our ability to tolerate certain kinds of foods like dairy and disease resistance. Scientists agreed that early ancestors Homo erectus first appeared in Africa about 1 to 2 million years ago. They spread throughout the world and evolved into ancient humans. Right now, we are currently evolving, but it will take another million years to become another type of species. Some believe that we're slowly becoming machines because of all the technologies around us.
Coming into number 9, we have mermaid syndrome. Mermaid syndrome, as it is colloquially known, is something called areonomelia. It's a rare deformity that sees the person's legs fused together like a mermaid tail. The condition is extremely rare and usually goes hand in hand with kidney and bladder issues. Many babies are still born with the syndrome, and the oldest known sufferer, Tiffany Yorks, died aged 27. In 2009, a 10-year-old girl, Shyla Pepin, died from the genetic mutation too. Coming into number 8, we have tree syndrome. Tree syndrome, as it has been called, is a rare genetic condition caused by an inactivating pH mutation in either the EVER1 or EVER2 genes. The condition means that a person grows scaly macules and papules which look like tree roots. The most famous sufferer is Didi Koswara, who died aged 42 in 2016. Coming into number 7, we have Cyclopia. Cyclopia is the name given to the congenital disorder that creates cyclopses. No, they aren't stuff of Greek legends. Some cyclopses have existed in real life. There haven't been many living cyclopses, as usually cyclopia in babies results in miscarriages or stillbirths. As I said though, most human cyclopses do die within a few days. However, one cyclops goat in India is still living. Studying this goat may help humans with the genetic mutation survive in the future. Coming into number 6, we have elephant syndrome. Most people have heard of the Elephant Man, but what people in the 1800s didn't know about Joseph Merrick was that he was actually suffering from Proteus syndrome. This is a genetic disorder and a gene mutation. The mutant gene causes horrifying disfigurations, leading body parts to grow rapidly and asymmetrically. Not all mutations cause visible disability.
Okay, now we're at number 5, and it's a little scary, but humans almost went extinct. In fact, genetic studies indicate that our population was low enough that we were actually eligible to be on the endangered species list. There was a time where there was only 3,000 humans on Earth. So yeah, we almost went extinct. So how did this happen? About 60 to 70,000 years ago, human wasn't able to survive in the harsh environment. I mean, there was harsh winters. There was even a supervolcano that wiped out a lot of people.
Coming in at number 4, we have Harlequin ichthyosis. This genetic mutation is pretty heartbreaking. It results in thick diamond-shaped skin clumps separated by cracks. It also affects the shape of the eyes, nose and mouth, as well as often limiting bodily movements. Sadly for sufferers, there is no cure, and the mutation affects around 1 in every 300,000 births. One sufferer, American Stephanie Turner, said that people think that she's been burned in a fire. Coming into number 3, we have werewolf syndrome. Officially known as hypertrichosis or Ambras syndrome, this genetic mutation means that sufferers grow abnormal amounts of body hair over their entire body. Very strange at number 2, we have tail syndrome. Tail syndrome, or a vestigial tail as it is known, is a mutation that means that some humans are born with extra vertebrae in their back, making it look as if they have a tail. One man in India actually had an 18cm tail removed in October 2016. This has been called the longest human tail ever. The 18-year-old Indian guy didn't see medics until he was into his late teens because of the social stigma attached to the mutation. I for one actually think I could get on board with a tail. Finally, coming into number 1, we have a mutation that causes 2 heads. Officially known as polycephaly, this is a birth defect usually involving a parasitic twin. This is the case for Abby and Brittany Hansel, famous 27-year-old twins from Minnesota in America. The pair share one body but have separate hearts, stomachs, spines and lungs, and, 2 heads. Interestingly, they have one set of reproductive organs, so if they fell pregnant, they would both be the mother.
Coming in at number 10, we have they might have mated with gorillas. Now, on the first one of these videos, we covered the fact that early humans were deep in the dating game and had no interest in only sleeping with their own species. Thanks to the wonders of science, we've been able to discover that modern humans have traces of other prehistoric humans in their DNA, like Neanderthals and Denisovians. I wonder what Tinder looked like back before we had stone tools. Would you just whip a rock into a crowd and whoever got clocked in the head would be your date to the prehistoric prom? Now, it would seem that humans took it a step further and might have been hooking up with gorillas, and the evidence to back this up is the fact that humans have 2 very different kinds of lice on their body. While nearly every other mammal on this planet only has one type of creepy species of lice that likes to rummage through their hair, we have 2. We have head lice and we have pubic lice. Can you guess which one of the 2 species of lice that we have on our bodies is the most similar to the lice found on gorillas? Yeah, it's pubic lice. Yeah, so if you wanted the image of a caveman kissing Harambe on the lips, I just brought it home to you.
Number 9. Scientists have found skeletons of hobbit-like species of human that grew no larger than a 3-year-old modern child. The tiny humans who had skulls around the size of grapefruits lived like pygmy elephants and Komodo dragons on a remote island in Indonesia 18,000 years ago. Scientists have determined that the first skeleton that they found belonged to species of humans completely new to science. The name given to these hobbit-type humans was Homo floresiensis, which is the name of the island that they were found on. Okay, now we're in at number 8. Homo sapiens navigated through the Indian Ocean in boats around 50,000 years ago. They arrived in Australia from Africa using these tiny boats. Take a look at this map. It shows the path that humans have traveled over time. We always had the instinct to explore. We first started off going north from Africa and we made our way through Asia. And then we headed over west to explore the new lands over there. And these are lands that we know today as like UK, we got Russia, and then we even discovered down east India. Then we discovered Australia, we went over the waters to discover what people now call the Americas. Number 7, the relationships between apes and humans are actually quite high. A lot of people argue no, we haven't evolved from apes, and others say yes, we have. Well, regardless of that, listen to this. People are actually stunned to find out that about 98.5% of the genes in people and chimpanzees are identical. Well, there's this theory. Humans and apes share a common ancestor that lived a million years ago. This common ancestor diverged over time to form different species of hominid, only one of which which survived to become a modern human. Moving on to number 6, one of the first adaptations that we made as species was our ability to become bipedal. Bipedalism is a form of terrestrial locomotion where organisms moves by the means of its own two rare limbs or legs, meaning humans have learned from crawling on all fours to now just two. We found this to be a lot more effective, and we learned that it's more effective to use our hands, not, as our feet. The earliest evidence from us walking on two legs was about 3 to 6 million years ago. As we started walking, our body slowly adapted and changed over the years.
Coming in at number 5, it's the fact that we crossed the ocean. Here's something crazy. Early humans all started in Africa, and once they decided that they wanted to move out of the original basement, they trekked around the world, and that's how we've been able to cover the world with pizza, K-pop, and fancy clothes. But how the hell did early humans make it to Australia 50,000 years ago? Well, they did it in boats, my dude. They jumped in boats before they even had GPS or a Sudoku book to pass the time. And they set sail to find out who knows what. They crossed the ocean on something that Bear Grylls could have built with a shoestring and some bamboo shoots. I mean, we don't know that for sure, but it would seem that would be the only logical answer as to how they made it there, which is one of the most impressive feats imaginable. Unless you're a flat earther and you don't believe Australia is real and that everyone on the kangaroo continent is an actor, can we address how stupid that is for a moment? And who was the budget for this, and are people writing a script for what goes on down there? Zack Snyder jumped off of the Justice League and farted out the timeline for Australia 2021.
Now in at number 4, the human embryo has a pronounced tail 25 to 31 days into its development, but it disappears as the body grows. This is an evolutionary leftover from when we once had tails. As humans evolved, we no longer needed this. Humans had learned to get rid of this before being born. However, we have retained the supporting structure in our lower 3 to 5 vertebrae, which are partially conjoined and form the tailbone. Moving into number 3, goosebumps are an ancient reflex in which animals' hair rise in order to provide better insulation against the cold. However, humans have actually lost a lot of this hair on our bodies. Well, it depends on who you're asking. If you're a brown guy, yeah. Did we not evolve? What is going on? So having goosebumps in your body, it's a sign that tells us that we're cold. But now, since we don't have hair, we're not able to keep ourselves warm, hence why we start shaking when we're cold. We shiver. And this is your body's attempt to try to warm you up. At number 2, did you guys know that our brains are actually getting smaller and smaller? Before you guys start to freak out, there's actually a reason behind this. Humans are always adapting and getting smarter. So we're slowly evolving, and with our brains getting smaller, we're actually becoming more efficient. So we don't need the large sized brain. We're learning to use it better. By our brains getting smaller, this allows us to think faster. And it's more agile as the brain signals don't have to travel as far. Let's just hope it doesn't become too small, because then we can't obtain all the information that we do. Finally, in at number 1 spot, humans are incredibly low genetic diversity. This is mostly because we all appear to be descended from a small group of humans who lived in East Africa. Genetic diversity is the total number of genetic characteristics in the genetic makeup of species. For humans, we only have about 15,000 individuals. So I know this is a little bit confusing, but it just means we have 15,000 different types of people. So everyone born will fall into one of 15,000 of the same genetics of someone else. I mean, this is insane when you consider that we have a population growing and it's over 7 billion people. And if you look into other species, they have millions of different types. For example, beetles or ants. There's many different types of them.
In our number 10 spot today, we have the Masters of Fire. For a long time, it was believed that our prehistoric human ancestors were the ones who discovered fire, but as it turns out, that just isn't true. The evidence now suggests that Homo erectus, which were the first of our ancestors to walk upright and use tools, are actually the ones who can claim the title of Master of Fire. These guys were the first to learn how to produce a controlled flame and really paved the way for us to harness the power that fire can bring. Researchers have found fire pits in Africa that they have been able to date back 2 million years, which is absolutely wild. We certainly owe a lot to our evolutionary ancestors and all their discoveries, as well as to researchers who help us get a glimpse into what life was like all the way back then.
Coming in at number 9, we have the fact that humans just died off. Now, of course, all the early humans are dead, unless the theories that some of the celebrities we see are immortals who rule the earth from a shadow government are true. But it's not so much that they died off, but that about 80,000 years ago, a bunch of them died off. It was one of the rare times in human history where we saw our numbers drop. I don't know if you've been paying attention to human nature, but we tend to spread faster than a video of Joe Biden tripping up the stairs. But for some reason, there was a force that caused the human population to drop drastically, and we have no idea what it was. Now, chances are it wasn't some war, there wasn't enough of us back then, and we were too stupid to be that organized. One of the more popular theories is that there was a massive volcanic eruption that caused a carpet of ash to cover the skies, which led to freezing temperatures and massive food shortages. Now this is terrifying because what is stopping that from happening again? Is it someone's job to plug up all the volcanoes or vacuum up the sky if it's covered in smog cloud from hell? God, I hope so.
Coming in number 8, they had a wide range of expressions. Let's start with the cute ones before we move on to the dark ones. Humans were the first creatures that could blush, unless there was some dino that had rosy cheeks. But this was a way humans could show other creatures that they meant no harm. If you look into someone's big doe eyes and they have cheeks that are flush, it doesn't really look like they want to kill you. This primal form of expression is how we were able to communicate with other tribes before we could send texts saying I'll be there in 10 minutes. Now this wasn't the only way that humans could convey their emotions. There's a reason that showing your teeth and furrowing your brow is a signal of aggression. Early humans most likely had to use this face to tell people that it was time to fight, and it would seem that we never lost that ability. Batman is the perfect representation of brow furrowing still being alive and well today.
Coming in at number 7, we have the fact that we lowered our voice box. Now, this wasn't the choice of early humans, it just kind of happened. See, there's something very interesting about humans that seems like a design flaw. When we look at a lot of other primates and monkeys, we find that they have a much higher voice box. Now, this makes it pretty much impossible for them to talk, but it also prevents them from choking. See, because we have a voice box that is so low, it is much easier to choke. So at some point in our evolution, early man started to live a life that prioritized talking over choking to death. Great. Now, to be fair, it is still pretty hard to choke to death. It does happen, but it's not a commonality. Really, we just need to take smaller bites. And to think we chose the small bites so Fergie could one day make Fergalicious, yeah, I would say that's definitely worth it.
Coming in at number 6, they had a pretty small dating pool. It's great that now you can go on a plethora of dating apps and find your soulmate without even getting out of bed. But back when we were dragging our knuckles through the mud, we weren't so fortunate. It would seem that early humans had to put a lot more effort into finding someone to reproduce with, and there was a lot less of them to do it with. If we're going to look through our genetic diversity, we are going to find something very strange, that we have some of the lowest amount of genetic diversity of any ape, which makes me wonder, how were we able to make it this far? Well, because we have this information, it leads us to the question of why do humans have such a small pool of genes jiggling around in our bodies, and that is simply because the entire human race probably came from a small tribe in East Africa that was only about 15,000 people. Let me say that again, there's over 7 billion people on this planet, and they are the offspring of a group of 15,000 people. There were 150,000 people just in the suburb I grew up in. Would you really want to be the guy who screwed up on the hunt and then every human in the world would find out that you suck? You would never get a date again.
In our number 5 spot today, we have travel. Thousands and thousands of years ago, the early humans set out to explore areas of the world that they had not been yet, but this was an extreme challenge for them as it involved crossing the sea. The settlement of Australia is the earliest evidence we have of major sea crossing, and it is considered to be one of the greatest achievements the early humans made. It is, however, unclear if the goal was to reach Australia or if these people just got caught up in wind and waves and luckily arrived on land. It is assumed that the boats used were made out of bamboo, but researchers will likely never know for sure. There is some evidence that suggests that the early humans may have reached Australia as early as 120,000 years ago, but we know for sure that it was at least 65,000 years ago, which is still quite a feat. It is highly unlikely that the early humans made it on this voyage on their first try, so we can only imagine how many people lost their lives in an attempt to explore our Earth. Who knows what would have happened if they never took these risks?
Coming in at number 4, they gave us lower back pain. I mean, they didn't really do this on purpose. There wasn't some early human scientist who was thinking, I hate the future and I want everyone there to suffer and need to see a chiropractor. No, it was much less intentional. See, early humans used to spend their days walking around on all fours like we see with most other primates. They also had to hunt and travel to get food, which was very demanding work, which gave us strong bodies that had thick bones. bones, and a posture that was constantly leaning over so we could walk on our hands. Then we, for whatever reason, started to walk upright. I don't know whose idea this was. Whoever thought 2 legs was better than 4 is dead wrong. But it's okay because we still had strong muscles and thick bones to support our new lifestyle. But then we invented agriculture and we started to become much more sedentary. So now our bodies are soft and we're walking upright, which puts a ton of stress on our lower back and hips. So unless you're hitting your yoga every other day, you're gonna see your joints wear and tear like the crotch area on your jeans. Why couldn't these dudes just stay down on their hands so I didn't have to see an osteopath every 3 weeks?
Alright, coming in at number 3, we have the fact that they were the bringers of death. This should come as a surprise to no one, but humans are very good at killing. It doesn't matter if it's plant life, animal life, human life, or the entire planet itself, we are finding new and inventive ways to create death. And just so you know, this is nothing new. Early humans found so many different ways to hunt and bring destruction. Back then it was more for survival. No one was trophy hunting. But there are tons of tools like clubs, spears, and hatchets that some of our ancestors would use while they were tracking down their prey. Some of the more inventive things that have been discovered are fishing rods and nets. And it would seem that some of the weaponry and hunting tools that early man was able to make was more advanced than we originally thought.
Coming in at number 2, we have the death throw. I know this sounds like a move from a cheesy kung fu movie, but it was actually one of the key elements that led to Homo sapiens' ability to take over the world. We can throw better and faster than pretty much any other animal on the planet. I'm sure if you trained a chimp to throw a ball its whole life, it could do a better job than a pitcher on sheer strength, but it doesn't come to them naturally. See, humans found out they could whip almost anything like a slug firing out of a shotgun, and this gave us an edge to start taking over. We would first use rocks, but quickly found out that pointy rocks on the end of a stick, aka a spear, would have some of the most stopping power of all time.
And coming in at number 1, we have cannibalism. So it would seem that not everything ancient humans ate were foliage and animals. There were certain tribes that got so hungry they had to turn to munching on other humans to survive. There's a lot of evidence that shows some human tribes would practice cannibalism, and that this isn't just for survival, but a preferred way to live? I guess you could go to war to gain a new territory and then eat all the bodies after. That's what you could call killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Well, why did these brutal traditions not make it to the modern era? Well, other than it being insane and terrifying, cannibalism has some pretty devastating effects on the body. It does a number on the digestive system and can cause the brain to rot. That's where things like mad cow disease came from. Farmers were feeding dead cows to living cows and started a new illness. So most of these human-eating humans would have died off because their bodies couldn't manage their destructive lifestyle. I wonder if that's the same for tequila?
Starting off this countdown, we have geophagy. This is a practice in which early humans would eat dirt in order to heal themselves. It all started when they saw animals eating clay and dirt and they were like, if it doesn't make them sick, let's try and eat it as well. Maybe they're eating it for a reason and we should be too. So whenever people were sick, they would eat dirt or clay. Doubt that it tasted very good and not sure what it really did for their bodies, but they did it.
In our number 9 spot today, we have blue eyes. We have known for a while that blue eyes are a genetic mutation, as we once lived in a world where everyone had brown eyes, but what I didn't know is just how far back this mutation goes. The crazy thing is that every single person today with blue eyes, myself included, can be traced back to one single common ancestor from thousands and thousands of years ago. That is pretty wild when you really think about it. While blue eyes are more rare than we think, it is thought that this trait only survived because of the fact that these blue eyes were seen as highly attractive, which ensured that those with the blue eyes had no trouble finding a partner to procreate with. I'm extremely grateful that things didn't go the opposite way and it wasn't considered a horrendous mutation, or that there wasn't some scary belief that those with blue eyes were cursed, because if that was the case, our world would have been a lot different. I mean, at least in terms of eye color. In our number 8 spot today, we have relationship transformation. Our early human ancestors lived mostly nomadic lives, but at some point there began to be a transition into a more settled life. With this settlement came agriculture and property, which also means inheritance. This completely changed the way we looked at relationships and procreation. In the more nomadic times, monogamy wasn't really a thing because why? It wouldn't necessarily matter, and it was the norm for both males and females to have multiple sexual partners. The idea of monogamy just didn't really exist, but with the shift of civilization came the shift in this way of thinking. Now that people have homes and things, knowing who your children are becomes a lot more important to people. It's not like this shift happened overnight, but it certainly made quite the change for those who were living during these times. This undoubtedly has affected the way we live our lives and the more modern view of family and relationships. Who knows what our world would look like if this specific change never occurred. In our number 7 spot today, we have sharing the earth. Evolution isn't a linear process. This might seem obvious, but it's something that not everyone has taken time to consider. This means that our early human ancestors, the early Homo sapiens, lived on Earth with our even earlier evolutionary ancestors, such as the Homo floresiensis, which is more colloquially referred to as the Hobbit. That is absolute insanity to think about. We mostly know about Neanderthals. Thinking about these other hominins existing at the same time is very interesting. It is thought that we continued to live among them as recently as 15,000 years ago. In our number 6 spot today, we have man's best friend. We all know dogs are man's best friend, but just how far back does this bond go? Well, as it turns out, way farther than you may have thought. Evidence shows that around 15,000 years ago, humans began domesticating wolves, which would eventually lead us to dogs. It is thought that the Eurasian gray wolf was the first of all the wolves to be domesticated, although little is known about why this practice originated. There is speculation that it may have happened unintentionally, as the early humans may have shared excess meat with the wolves, which then led to a mutually beneficial relationship or a companionship. Others thought that they were simply domesticated in order to help the early humans hunt. At the end of the day, we may never know for sure, but we do know that the earliest known dog burial dates back to 14,200 years ago. So by that time, dogs were certainly well loved by humans.
We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the animal dung. So like I just mentioned, animals were thought to have curing properties. In fact, their poop was thought to be a cure-all. So Egyptian physicians would use donkey, gazelle, dog, and even human dung in their remedies. It was thought to be good for healing and to ward off bad spirits. However, it would seem as if most of the times people would develop tetanus and other infections after using excrement on their body. But believe it or not, research shows that the microflora found in some types of animal feces actually contains antibiotic substances. So there you go. They were definitely onto something there.
In our number 4 spot today, we have the burial practices. Every culture has their own practices for the burial of people who have passed away, and it is usually part of some sort of ceremony or ritual, but this wasn't always necessarily the case. The early humans had quite a wide variety of burial practices, with some burials and graves being extremely lavish and well decorated, with others just being plain. Researchers have found that men were buried more often than women, and infants were only buried very sporadically and sometimes not even at all. Sometimes bodies would be buried with household items or ornaments that they would have worn while still alive, but researchers just can't seem to figure out exactly why there is such a variety in burials. They have said that there seems to be very little rhyme or reason to it, so it may possibly just be one of those things that is destined to be a mystery to us modern humans. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Neanderthals. For a long time, it was believed that our early human ancestors killed off Neanderthals, which is what led to Homo sapiens taking over, but that is most likely not true at all. Instead, we did interbreed with them, which may have swamped their genetics, but there are some other evolutionary things that may have naturally contributed to the disappearance of Neanderthals. Scientists have been able to come up with a 3D model for what the brain of a Neanderthal would have looked like, and have been able to compare that to the brain of an early human. While Neanderthals had bigger skulls, which meant bigger brains, humans have a much larger cerebellum. This is important since the cerebellum is responsible for so much, including movement and balance, to vision and learning, to language, and even mood. This means that we basically just may have had more flexible minds than Neanderthals, which allowed us to progress more quickly. We may have developed better hunting and foraging tactics quicker, as well as being able to develop technology at a higher rate. While we may never know for sure what caused the disappearance of Neanderthals, it is still a question that is highly researched and looked into, so there is a possibility that one day we'll know for sure. In our number 2 spot today, we have tuberculosis. Tuberculosis has been around around for years and has wreaked quite a havoc on our world, but its history goes back farther than we may have thought. The disease was well documented in ancient Egypt, as mummies have been found with signs of the bacteria dating back 6,000 years, but scientists have begun being able to trace it back even farther than that to the Neolithic transition. This is the time when humans began taking part in agriculture and began domesticating more animals, and for a while it was believed that tuberculosis may have originated in these animals and then it was passed on to humans. Well, as it turns out, this may not even be the beginning of the disease, as it is now believed that it emerged in humans 70,000 years ago. It is quite a mystery how it has managed to survive this long, as it needs a human host, but it also usually kills the human who is infected with it. But researchers believe that around 20,000 to 30,000 years ago, the bacteria evolved to be able to go dormant in the human host, only to re-emerge decades later. This information is not only crazy, but it may help researchers with the fight against the bacteria in our modern society. In our number one spot today, we have the fight for food. In the other parts of these videos, we have talked a lot about the hunting patterns of the early humans, as they obviously did things very differently than we do today. But after scientists were able to piece together what a habitat would have looked like for a human 1.8 million years ago, they have been able to really show what life was like back then. One thing we don't often think about is how much competition there would have been for the early humans to get their food. Without high-powered machinery, humans are certainly knocked down a few pegs in terms of their ability to hunt, and there are other animals on this planet that are much better and naturally equipped. This is what led to there being multiple ways of hunting, because it was a highly stressful activity for them. Sometimes it was better to just scavenge what was left over from a large carnivorous predator, as it could be a huge risk going out and hunting your own meat in fear of becoming the meal. The recreation of the habitat also led researchers to learn more about the lives of the earliest humans and how they ate and drank. It is also believed that when they did go out to hunt their own meat, they most likely brought it back to safer places in order to feast on their kill.
Starting us off in our number 10 spot, we have the Planet of the Apes. Yeah, remember those movies that were made in the 70s and then were rebooted to death? Well, they may not have been too off the mark. It is pretty well known that we have evolved from primates, but what is not known is how these slightly less intelligent animals became us humans, who are now trying to create the perfect AI. Oh man, stop doing that, by the way. We are already at war with ourselves. Let's not add freaking robots to the mix, please. Thank you. According to the anthropologist Raymond Dart, we evolved not just from our ape ancestors, but mainly from our ape-killing ancestors. That was how our ape ancestors established dominance and slowly became intelligent beings. Gray matter, like our brains, also needs 20 times more energy than what muscle does, and it is believed that the meats that are high in protein and fat are what helped develop our brains. Once we started cooking, we used less energy to eat the tough food, and we used the extra energy and nutrients into our brains. So we quite literally may have just come out on top from eating meat and cooking stuff.
Coming in at number 9, we have the powder of sympathy. This was a form of sympathetic medicine that was used in the 17th century. Basically, this special powder was put on a weapon that inflicted a person a wound, and it was said to heal the injury. Yeah, you heard me. The treatment was placed on the weapon, not the actual wound. So the powder was made up of green vitriol that was first dissolved in water and then afterwards recrystallized in the sun. Apparently, the Duke of Buckingham healed his secretary who was suffering from gangrene by soaking his bloody bandage in this solution. I don't know, it just sounds crazy to me. Moving on to number 8, we have the cuts and broken bones. Back in the day, it was fairly common for humans to get scrapes, cuts, or to break their bones. That's because they would have to compete with animals for food, as well as run away from animals who were their natural predators. So if they did get a cut, obviously they didn't have band-aids back then, so they would use mud. Once the wet mud or clay was put on a person's skin, it would dry up and seal the wound. For broken bones, clay was also used. The broken bones were cased in a pot made from mud. It's pretty resourceful if you ask me. In our 7th spot, we have the painkillers. Imagine going through a massive surgery nowadays without painkillers, or getting a headache and not being able to cure it with Advil. It would suck pretty badly, right? Well, back in the day, early humans actually had painkillers. They used poplar. Poplar is a plant that contains salicylic acid, which has pain-relieving, anti-inflammatory, and temperature-lowering effects. After studying dental calculus on the teeth of Neanderthals, they found traces of poplar, suggesting they ate this plant in low doses as a painkiller. In our sixth spot, we have the animal cure. So according to the ancient Egyptians, a number of animals had natural curing properties. For example, lizard blood would be used as a topical ointment, whereas dead mice were used as bandages. Not only that, but horse saliva was said to cure a woman's sex drive. So women with a low libido were often doused in...
Coming at our halfway point at number 5, we have life in the ice, not life on ice. That just sounds like an interesting scientific ice skating show that you would see when you were little, when Disney on Ice was sold out, or something like that. But anyway, back on topic, ice may just have covered the oceans 3 billion years ago as the sun was about a third less luminous. So this insanely thick layer of ice, maybe even hundreds of feet thick, could have protected fragile organic compounds in the water below from the ultraviolet light and harm from the cosmic impacts. The icy cold also may just have helped those compounds to have lived longer, allowing key reactions to take place. So we may have come from the ice, so maybe we're all just a bunch of ice people, and that would give the song Cold as Ice a whole new meaning.
In our fourth spot, we have corpse medicine. Sounds gross, and that's because it definitely is gross. Back in the day, an elixir was given to people suffering from persistent headaches, muscle cramps, or stomach ulcers. What was in this magic elixir, you say? Well, human flesh, blood, or bone. This was called corpse medicine and was around for hundreds of years. So back in the day, Romans thought the blood of fallen gladiators would cure epilepsy. So when a Roman gladiator lost their life, their blood was collected and then sold as medicine. The Romans believed that the warrior's blood had magical powers. Sometimes they would even take out the warrior's liver and eat them raw, again thinking that this would cure them. In the 12th century, people would grind up mummies looted from Egypt and make something called mummy powder, which was also supposed to have healing properties. Now, the type of medicine that you received depended on your ailment. For example, if you suffered from headaches, you'd be given a treatment made out of a dead person's skull. If you had muscle aches, you'd be given human fat, so on and so on. In fact, people would attend executions just so that they could collect a cup of fresh human blood. Moving on to number 3, we have the Babylonian skull cure. During ancient Babylonian times, most illnesses were thought to be caused by a demonic entity or were a form of punishment from the gods who were angered by your wrongdoings. Therefore, the doctors back then acted more as priests or exorcists instead of actual doctors. So when people were sick, they would perform magical rituals to cure them. For example, let's say that you had a bad habit of grinding your teeth at night. The doctor would then make you sleep by a human skull for a week as a way to exorcise the spirit that was causing you to grind your teeth. They thought maybe a spirit was trying to contact you in your sleep. Anyways, this treatment gets even more messed up. Aside from the sleeping next to the skull, the individual had to also kiss and lick the skull 7 times each night. Yes, you heard me correctly. I'm just glad that we no longer practice this because I'm constantly grinding my teeth at night. Moving on to number 2, we have bloodletting. Thousands of years ago, early humans believed that sickness was a result of bad blood. So what way to cure this than to get rid of the bad blood inside of you? Hence why the practice bloodletting became a thing. It's said that this practice started with the ancient Sumerians and Egyptians, but didn't become a common practice until the classical Greece and Rome time period. Hippocrates and Galen believed that the human body was filled with 4 substances: yellow bile, black bile, phlegm, and blood. If they got sick, they believed that that meant that the person had bad blood. So they would cut a person's vein and drain some of the blood. In other cases, they would use leeches to suck the bad blood directly out from their skin. Which, obviously it's a risky business to just cut a vein, and as a result, a number of people accidentally bled to death. And in our number 1 spot today, we have trepanning. Back in the day, when people suffered from seizures or migraines or mental health issues, they were treated by a procedure called trepanning, which basically involved drilling a hole into the human skull. It's said that this would free the victim of the demon or evil spirits inside of them, causing them these issues. Scientists first discovered this procedure after analyzing cave paintings from the prehistoric people. After the procedure was complete, if the person was still alive, they would actually keep the part of the skull as a good luck charm. This is said to be one of the oldest forms of surgery in history.